Good morning. I'm a Mormon, Michelle, and this is episode number 43, The Word of Wisdom. Welcome to the I Cut the Mustard show, where a plant-based diet and small, simple moves make healthy change happen. And where we believe that you already have what it takes to slice through any barrier that stands in your way. Shing! You're sharp enough. You cut the mustard. All right, are you ready for something cool? Today, I'm going to share something that I absolutely love, which is called the Word of Wisdom. And I mentioned on one of the earlier episodes that I belong to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And one of the reasons that I eat a plant-based diet is because it aligns with my religious beliefs. So today, I wanted to just dive in and talk about them specifically in my religion. We have this special document called the Word of Wisdom, and it is a revelation given to one of our prophet, Joseph Smith, back in the 1800s, and it kind of outlines these four major principles that I think align with the plant-based diet really well. And I think it's cool to see that even back in the 1800s, they had a lot of these ideas. And I'm also talking to anyone else who is a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, because I think it is such an important document for our day when there are so many delicious foods and pleasures and addictions going on. And I think this revelation came a long time ago to help prepare us for today whenever there's a lot of temptations out there. And I think most of the members of my church don't understand the principles that are in this document. And I'm not saying that I have all the answers. I'm not saying that my interpretation is like the best one ever, but I think we don't always look at it. We've taken it for granted and we haven't really looked at it in this way before. So I hope if you're a member of the church, I can open your eyes to what's inside this document. And if you're not, same thing. It'll be cool. Okay. So in the beginning of the document, it talks about how this is a word of wisdom. It's a principle with a promise. So a principle is just a general rule, right? He's giving us general rules or guidelines, not a specific list of exactly what we're supposed to eat every single day, but something that's flexible for your environment and for the individual. So I think that's really cool, because I think it says that God trusts you, that you're amazing, and that you can trust yourself to make the right choices. So sometimes things are counterintuitive for us, right? But if we're given some principles to get us started, then we can understand and listen to our body, listen to God, and make the correct choices that we need in our life. So principle number one that I feel like really comes out of this is to eat vegetables and fruits in their season. So that's principle number one. And from the document, it says, all wholesome herbs God hath ordained for the constitution, nature, and use of man. Every herb in the season thereof, every fruit in the season thereof, to be used with prudence and thanksgiving. So God's given us all herbs and every fruit. And I think whenever we read that nowadays, we're thinking, okay, herbs like cilantro and fruit like apples. But back in the day, I looked up the Webster's Dictionary, 1838, I believe. It's all online. But so some of the definitions from back in the day are a little bit different than what we use today. So I just wanted to go over those. So from that dictionary, it says an herb is actually a plant or a vegetable. So it's the stalk, the stem, the leaf part of the plant, right? So celery, kale, all the great vegetables where we eat the stalk or the stem or the leaves. And then the fruit is referring to the part of the tree or the plant that has the seeds inside of it, right? So it could be all grains, wheat, rye, barley, oats, apples, squash, all of that stuff is what it's talking about. So not just herbs and fruit, but honestly, all of the plants that are edible is what it's referring to here. So number one, eat vegetables and fruit in season. And I think that in season part there is cool too, because not only are we eating fruits and vegetables, but whenever you start to learn more about fruits and vegetables, you realize that winter vegetables help warm your body. They were made for a reason. And spring vegetables help cool your body. In the summer vegetables, like for example, cucumbers and watermelons, that helps you stay hydrated. I know whenever I was pregnant and my hands and feet were getting really puffy, they said, eat cucumbers and watermelon because that's going to help you with the puffiness, right? So vegetables and fruits and herbs all grow in specific areas for specific reasons and in specific seasons for specific reasons. So that's why we're starting to go back to local as well too, and to the farmer's market and things like that, because it really is the best for our body, which is so cool. The principle number 2 that I find in the word of wisdom is to use meat sparingly, is what it says. So flesh also of beasts and of fowls of the air, I, the Lord, have ordained for the use of man with thanksgiving. Nevertheless, they are to be used sparingly. Now, this is a really big debate among members of my church, and I think we get caught up and confused by a lot of the guidelines that we have in our country or in any country that, the government's telling us and to eat a certain way, and we're taught at school to eat a certain way. So when we read this, we kind of interpret it through that lens. But if you are a member of the church or otherwise, I want you to just step back and put all of that aside for a minute and just take this at the value of the words that are being said. So what is sparingly? We argue about this a lot. What might that mean? And again, it's just a principle. So you get to interpret it however you want. But I think he gives us a little bit more detail here about what it means to be used sparingly. And I think if you step back and get rid of some of your biases, it's actually pretty clear. So if you continue reading, it says, it is pleasing unto me that they should not be used. So this is beasts and fowls of the air should not be used only in times of winter or of cold or famine. And then in another verse, he says, these hath God made for the use of man only in times of famine and excess hunger. Right? So to me, that sounds like sparingly is pretty sparing, right? He's saying twice, only in times of winter, cold, or famine. They should not be used only in times of excess hunger or famine. So they're there for you when you need them. This is my interpretation. They're there for you when you need them because maybe you're having a winter or cold, right? Maybe you're having a personal famine. I know in one of my pregnancies, I just felt absolutely disgusting unless I ate meat, and I just couldn't feel good. So, and I know I've heard from other nutritionists that the protein that you get from animals really converts right into, you don't have to convert it in your body. It can just go right into your body. So there's some benefits to eating protein in this way, especially if you're starving in the wilderness, like back in the day in the 1800s, whenever you don't have food in the winter, then it was great to have meat in the winter so that they could survive, right? So in other scriptures that we have, God has said, hey, I've given you meat and the animals, you're going to have dominion over them. You take care of them. You can use them as you need to. I'm not going to forbid you not to eat them because sometimes you may need that, but you're going to be accountable for the meat that you use, the flesh that you use, and you need to use it wisely. I know that I personally choose not to eat animal products. I try to go as close to 100% as I possibly can because of modern science has shown us that we don't really need animal products to be in our optimal health state. And as we eliminate those things, we can avoid heart disease, we can avoid cancer, and a lot of the major degenerative diseases. Because right now we're eating meat in excess. I mean, sparingly doesn't mean every single meal as the primary thing that you're eating in every single meal. That's definitely not the definition of sparingly, right? So we could all interpret it in our way, but I feel like I think we could all agree that every meal is not infrequently, right? So I think the third principle that we get from the word of wisdom is to avoid addictive substances. And this is one that we talk about a lot in my church, and we really care about it and we're really proud of, right? So the word of wisdom says that inasmuch as any man drinketh wine or strong drink among you, behold, it is not good, neither meat in the sight of your Father. Strong drinks are not for the belly, but for the washing of your bodies. Tobacco is not for the body, neither for the belly, and is not good for man. And hot drinks are not for the body or the belly. And the later prophets have elaborated on this a little bit. So if we go through this list, strong drinks would mean alcoholic beverages, right? And then tobacco, obviously smoking, chewing, that sort of thing. And then hot drinks, meaning tea and coffee. So black tea, green tea, and coffee is what we are given. That's the most specifics we're given. So I think in general, it's teaching us a general principle that strong drink, like these are addictive substances, they should be avoided, right? And I've got a little quote here from one of our apostles, Dallin H. Oaks. He said, "We should avoid any behavior that is addictive. Whatever is addictive compromises our will, subjecting our will to the overbearing impulses imposed by any form of addiction, serves Satan's purposes, and subverts our Heavenly Father's." So this applies to addictions to drugs such as narcotics, alcohol, nicotine, or caffeine, addictions to practices such as gambling and other addictive behaviors. We can avoid addictions by keeping the commandments of God. So addictions in general, right? We know that from personal experience and from modern research that addictive foods alter our brain chemistry. They create pathways in our brain that creates strong urges in our bodies that are really difficult to step away from. So we know that as we keep drinking, then that urge becomes really strong. It's hard to stop drinking. It's hard to stop smoking. For anyone who's tried to give up sugar or processed flours 100%, you know that there's a really strong urge to keep eating those things. Now, as a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, this is the part that really sets us apart from other people. We are really known for and benefit from the fact that we don't drink alcohol or tea or coffee and that we don't smoke. We've seen amazing health benefits from this that I often take for granted because when I've been listening and reading a lot of alcohol addiction books, and I listen to podcasts about it because I want to learn about addiction and how to help people stop overeating and stop stress eating and help myself stop stress eating, right? So it's a really interesting, fascinating topic, I think. And as I read more about alcohol, I think it's interesting that so many people are caught in the pleasure trap there. And not having been in that culture, I didn't realize that it's kind of the same as sugar. I mean, if you are drinking alcohol, it's because you think that it's doing something for you, that you think that it's making you happy, you think that it's helping you relax, you think that it's the only way to connect and have fun with your friends, right? It's just really ingrained in our culture to drink. And the more that I've read about it, the more that I see it all around me. Everybody drinks and everybody does it at social situations. It's at almost all the social gatherings. So it's a huge thing, and it's a big barrier for many of us to get over as well. And I talk a lot about food, but I think alcohol, soda, and these other addictive things, all of the addictive things are difficult to overcome because of these really strong physical urges that we have because of it. So now God didn't say, he didn't list out every single addictive substance in the whole world. Back in the 1800s, he wasn't talking about refined sugar and flour and marijuana like we are now. But I think that the principle is there to be careful and don't put addictive foods inside your body. Be careful about what you do and choose foods that are wholesome, that you can give thanks for, and that you can do respectfully. And the last principle that I take out of this that I think is really, really helpful for today is principle number 4, that grain is good for you. Carbs are good, right? It says all grain is ordained for the use of man and a beast to be the staff of a life. And then it goes through and lists some specific grains and things. But I think this one is so confusing for us nowadays. We've been caught in the low carb crave for decades now. That everyone thinks carbs are bad, and we keep focusing on that, and we keep eating our meat. It's kind of like this scapegoat. Sugar and carbs are bad. They're the problem. So let's keep eating protein, which, by the way, is also the problem. But I think it's really confusing because it does make sense. Most of the grains that we eat now are refined grains and have lots of sugar and oil in them. So whenever we eat them, we don't feel good. They aren't good for our bodies. So you can see the logic there when people say carbs are bad for you, they make you fat. Then that's true. We can find evidence for that, and it gets really confusing. But I've always been intrigued by this here, that all grain is ordained for the use of man. It's the staff of life. So I'm like, okay, he's saying it's the staff of life. That means it's pretty important. That sounds like it's one of the main things in our lives that we should be doing, right? So a staff is something that you hold on to that helps you and in your life. And in scientific research, in epidemiological studies, and just in the plant-based movement in general, we've seen that this is true, that carbs really are the center of a healthy diet, and that as you reduce fat intake and animal proteins specifically, then that clears the junk out of your arteries so that you have less heart disease. It increases insulin resistance sensitivity so that basically you can use your insulin better and you don't get diabetes. Whenever you make grains and good carbs the center of your diet, it really is the healthiest diet for you. So lastly, I just wanted to mention those promise blessings, because at the beginning of the Word of Wisdom, it says it's a principle with a promise. And I think the promise blessings are really cool too, because they reflect a lot of things that we're seeing in the research as well. It says, if you do these things, you'll have health in your navel, marrow in your bones. So your bones are going to be strong and you're going to be healthy. You shall find wisdom and great treasures of knowledge, even hidden treasures. So I know for me, my mind is so much clearer whenever I give up addictive foods, when I don't eat meat, whenever I eat plenty of grains and fruits and vegetables. And then the next one says, you shall run and not be weary. You shall walk and not faint. Who has gone plant-based and just seen the amazing energy that you have, right? And I think these are all super cool. I mean, they're just all of the benefits that I hear people say over and over again whenever they give their testimonials. Whenever you move towards a whole food, plant-based diet, when you're eating more fruits and vegetables, when you're eating all the right good carbs, when you give up the junky foods, everyone's talking about how their health is renewed, their life is renewed, they've got strong bones, they've got healthy hearts, right? You can reverse heart disease. You have a wisdom, that mental clarity. I remember talking to someone at a conference recently, and he was pretty fit and active, and he'd watched the Game Changers documentary, and he was telling me, oh my goodness, the mental clarity is so crazy. Like, I just didn't realize that I had this fog going. And another one of my clients recently said, like, how long have you felt like this? Right? How long have you had this mental clarity? It's crazy. Like, no wonder you could get so much done. So, I mean, really, really cool. And then again, that energy, running and not be weary, walk and not faint. And I think that's not just energy, but throughout our whole lives, right? You're running. 80, 90-year-olds are running and they're not weary. That Blue Zones book that I mentioned, 100-year-old people are just getting up and down off of the ground because they've chosen to have healthy diets and active, healthy lifestyles and manage their stress properly. So so many awesome blessings. I think they're so cool. I think that we get to see them in science and just played out in people's lives who are eating this way. And then, of course, the last one is a religious promise that the destroying angels shall pass by them as the children of Israel and not slay them. So just a promise that you'll be protected for keeping the commandments. So I just want to end by saying that this has been invaluable to me. It's been an invaluable part of my health journey. And as I've mentioned previously, I mean, it made total sense to me whenever I read about the plant-based diet. It follows these principles so closely that it's a huge reason why I believe in it so much. And because I've seen the same benefits and blessings in my life, I know that it's the best way to eat and I want to share it with everybody, right? So as I've wandered and wondered what is it that I should do, I've often read this over and over and over again, and I've been able to receive new insights about it and change my life in ways that have changed my health and my energy and just the whole course of what I do in my life. So I think there's a lot of great advice here. There's those basic principles, which leaves a lot of room for flexibility. And I think we don't have to overcomplicate things. You don't have to have the 12 things that you absolutely eat every single day in order to be healthy, but that there's so much variety in nature. And a lot of times what we don't do is equally as important as what we do, which we'll talk about more tomorrow. Go ahead and hit subscribe so you don't miss that episode. And I'll talk to you soon. Have a great day. Bye-bye. What's one thing that's really been weighing you down? Are you ready to kick it to the side? Then join me for a Stress Less call today, where you'll learn the /1 mindset tool that I use to stop stressing and find relief right now. Go to icutthemustard.com/stressless to sign up for that call today.